Hello and welcome back to Travel in Chinese. I'm Mark Rosewell, also known as Dashan. In this series, we're following an American family in China as they live in Beijing and travel all around the country. We're talking about travel, but we're learning language that can be used in a wide variety of situations. Now, we go through the lessons relatively quickly sometimes, so every once in a while we stop, take a moment to go back and review the lessons from the previous few weeks, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. Over the last set of lessons, we traveled to Xi'an, one of the ancient capitals of China. This is one of the great ancient capitals of the world, actually, on par with Rome or Cairo or Athens. Xi'an was the capital city of the first unified dynasty in Chinese history, and capital to many of the major dynasties over the next 2,000 years. Xue Mei and her colleagues are lucky enough to be sent to Xi'an on a business trip, but they are 人生地不熟. They don't know anybody here, and they're not familiar with the surroundings. 生 is short for 陌生, to not recognize, to not be familiar with. 熟 is short for 熟悉, to be familiar with something. 人生地不熟. Xue Mei has no idea what to do either, but one of her friends knows what to do, as he says, 我熟得很. I know all there is to know. I know the place like the back of my hand. 我很熟 would be less emphatic. I'm familiar with this. 我很熟. If you say 我熟得很, I'm extremely familiar with this. But his friends aren't sure if they can believe him or not. 我看你多半是在吹牛. From what I see, you're just boasting most of the time. Here, 多半 refers to time, more than half, most of the time. They decide to first see the old city wall, 古城墙. 起码得有600多年的历史吧. It must have at least 600 years of history. 起码 means at least. 码 literally means a number, 号码. 起码 the starting number, in other words, the least amount. In this lesson, we talked about the pattern 出于 something 的考虑, in consideration of something, or considering something. 出于安全的考虑, for safety's sake, in the interest or in consideration of safety. For example, we could say 出于时间的考虑, considering the time factor, taking time into consideration. Okay, now let's go and take a look at that dialogue.
哎，要我说，咱们先上去看看吧。
上面什么地方？
这上面啊，就是著名的西安古城墙。
古城墙，那不就是一堵墙吗？
走吧，上去你就知道了。
走。这么宽，这哪儿是墙啊？简直是一条马路。
可不是嘛，我估计这儿并排开2辆车都没问题。
而且啊，这墙也够结实，你们知道吗？都好几百年了。
几百年？有那么久吗？
那当然啊，这里啊，唐朝的时候就有城墙，而现在这座城墙呢，是明朝的时候在唐朝城墙的基础上修的。
这样算下来的话，起码得有600多年历史了吧？
可不是吗？
你说为什么要修这么宽的城墙呢？
我想，因为以前西安是西部一个重要的城市，修这么宽的城墙，主要是出于安全的考虑吧。
安全的考虑？
是啊，你想这打起仗来多占便宜啊。
说的有道理。
Yesterday they talked about 羊肉泡馍, a kind of bread called 馍 soaked in a lamb stew. 我们不如今天就去尝尝. 不如 is used to indicate a choice or selection. Here it's sort of like, why don't we? Why don't we go and try it today? 尝尝 is to taste, to try out some kind of food. But where can they get the most authentic 正宗 version? Their colleague recommends an old 100-year-old establishment, 百年老店. Here, the number 100 is used in a figurative sense, but you can assume that the place in question probably has at least 100 years of history. 百年老店 is used to describe old establishments that date back roughly to the later years of imperial China, perhaps even earlier. One of the expressions that we learned in this series was 再说了 and besides. This is a phrase commonly used when you want to add something that strengthens your argument. 再说了，跟着我这个西安通。还会有错的时候. Besides, how could you go wrong with a Xi'an expert like myself? They want 3 bowls of 羊肉泡馍. Now, we talked about this briefly last lesson. Mo is a type of hard, unleavened bread. You break it into pieces and add it to a lamb soup to make 羊肉泡馍. But they're not sure why they're served empty bowls. The so-called expert thinks he knows the answer. Now we see what kind of expert he really is. It seems he's never actually had 羊肉泡馍 before. The mo that you're given is quite hard, 挺硬的. You're supposed to first break the mo into the empty bowl, 掰 is to break off or to break apart. 掰开了 break it open. 掰成一块一块的 break it into little pieces. Then they'll take it back to the kitchen and combine it with the lamb stew. You can't just eat the raw bread by itself. Okay, let's watch the video this time.
欢迎光临，里边请。这是菜单，你看一下。
不必看了，先给我们来3碗羊肉泡馍。
好的，请稍等。
哎，这个空碗是干什么用的？还有，这个号码牌是什么意思呢？
你们2个猜猜看。
我想肯定是跟泡馍有关系吧。
我也这么想。
先答一下，这是泡馍的饼。
啊，这馍还真的挺硬的，可是没有汤怎么泡呢？
这空碗一会儿是来放汤的，既然给咱们上了馍，咱们就先尝尝吧。
先生，这馍是半熟的，现在还不能吃。
那我们怎么吃？
您得先把馍掰到这个空碗里，然后我们按号码牌去给您煮。
哦，是这样啊。
还说自己是西安通的，
幸亏我们没跟着做。
After a while of exploring the city of Xi'an, it's time to head out of town and see the terracotta warriors. In Chinese, the terracotta warriors are called Bing Ma Yong. Bing is soldier, Ma, of course, is horse. Yong is a tomb figurine, something that has been traditionally buried with the dead in ancient times. All through this area, you'll see replicas, 复制品 of the terracotta warriors for sale. 复制 is to copy, 复制品 a replica. But don't rush to buy the first ones you see. Go and see the real things first, and then choose what kind of souvenir replica you'd like to take home. Xuemei's friend almost bought one right off the bat. 要不是他要价太高, if they weren't so expensive, if the person didn't demand such a high price, 差点就买一个回去了. I would have bought one. 差一点 means just missed, just short. 差点就买了. I almost bought them. If it wasn't for the fact that the price they wanted was too high, I would have bought it. You can use 差点 to describe anything that almost happens. 我差点去了西安. I almost went to Xi'an. 她差点摔了. She almost fell. Here, it's clear that the result did not occur, but it almost did. The terracotta warriors were all buried in or around 秦始皇陵. Ling is a tomb, often appearing above ground just as a round hill. 陪葬坑, this is a burial pit, where all of these figurines were buried. And many artifacts have yet to be found. 都还在地下埋着呢. They're still buried underground. 埋 is to bury. 埋在地里, buried in the ground. The main tomb itself is thought to have remained untouched for over 2,000 years. The terracotta warriors themselves were discovered by accident some 30 years ago by a local peasant who was digging a well, 打井, in the fields. This region has such a rich and long history, it's said that the ground is full of artifacts. Who knows what other treasures lie buried beneath us when we visit Xi'an? Okay, let's watch the dialogue.
啊，这么多兵马俑，你们看，我觉得他们比我还要高。
这哪是兵马俑啊，简直就是一支完整的部队嘛！不仅有士兵，还有马和车。
他们本来就是给秦始皇陪葬的军队，而且你们看到的只是1号坑，只能算是陪葬部队的一部分。
天哪，只是一部分，那完整的应该是多少呢？
这可说不准了。不过据说现在出土的兵马俑已经有7、8千件了，我也不知道具体数字。
这个秦始皇真有意思，看来他死了以后还想继续当皇帝呢。
我听说秦始皇陪葬的东西可不止这些，除了兵马俑，还有铜车、铜马、石头做的兵器等等。
对，整个秦始皇陵光陪葬坑就有10几个，我们今天看到的就是其中的一个，而且有很多文物，人们到现在还没找到，都还在地下埋着呢。
哎，你们说是谁最先发现这个地方的呢？
哎，你们看那儿，听说是这附近一个农民在田里打井的时候发现的。
真有意思，这样也能发现文物啊！看来以后我们在西安走路的时候也要特别注意。
为什么？
也许什么时候我们也可以找到文物啊！
走，再看看。
Our friends were greatly impressed with the terracotta warriors, 兵马俑. In the next lesson, we learnt the pattern 不单, not only, 而且, but also. Using this pattern, we could say 我不单要去, 而且还要带我的家人一起去。I not only want to go, but I'm also going to take my family with me. The terracotta warriors are one of the most popular tourist sites in all of Xi'an. But what else is there worth seeing in this area? 还有什么可看吗? Is there anything else to see? Does Xi'an have anything with as long a history as the terracotta warriors to see? Well, don't underestimate or 小看 this city. 西安是中国6朝古都里历史最古老的一个。西安 is the most ancient, 最古老 of the 6 dynastic capitals of China. 缺了什么也不会缺了文物。Whatever it's short of, whatever it's lacking, it's not lacking for cultural artifacts. In other words, you might say that Xi'an is lacking this or lacking that, but it's certainly not lacking for cultural artifacts. This is another pattern we studied in the next lesson, a verb followed by 什么也. For example, 买什么也不能买复制品. Whatever you buy, don't buy a replica. Get the real thing. Well, unfortunately, in the case of terracotta warriors, that's not possible. Only the replicas are for sale. But back to Xi'an. There are lots of other things to see here. For example, there's the Daiyanta, the Big Goose Pagoda. Another site worth visiting is the Huaqing Chi, the Huaqing Pool. This was a hot spring bath area frequented by various emperors. This natural hot spring has a constant temperature of 43 degrees Celsius and has been used by people for many thousands of years. 怪不得, no wonder it's so famous, and so many people come every year. But there's another more specific reason for the Huaqing Pool's popularity. 更主要的原因, the main reason is that 这儿曾经是杨贵妃洗澡的地方. This is the place where Yang Guifei used to bathe. Yang Guifei is the most famous concubine in Chinese history. Okay, let's watch that dialogue now.
这里的水真清，这些水是从那边的山上流下来的吗？
不是，华清池实际上是一个温泉，水都是从地下冒出来的，而且可以常年保持43摄氏度的水温。
我还听说，在5、6千年前的时候，人们就已经发现这个温泉了。
5、6千年前，那历史可真是够长的，怪不得这里这么有名，到这儿来的人这么多。
华清池出名不仅仅是因为这里的历史长，更主要的原因是因为这儿曾经是杨贵妃洗澡的地方。
杨贵妃是唐朝的那个吗？
对，唐朝的皇帝ai Hua和杨贵妃冬天就常常喜欢到这里来。
Well, that brings us to the end of today's review lesson. I hope you're able to pick up more when we went through the stuff again this time. In our next lesson, we're going to go on to some new material. We're going to be heading to the southwest corner of China, to the province of Yunnan. There are lots of sights to see here. In Kunming, which is known as the City of Spring, Chuncheng, or around Kunming, for instance, like the Stone Forest, Shilin. We're even going to go to beautiful Lijiang, an ancient city in Yunnan. Okay, that's all the time we have for today. So we'll look forward to seeing you next time here on Travel in Chinese. 再见.